Hey guys, welcome to this bonus segment on the Base Brief. Hannah and I are going to react to some TikToks from the interesting and somewhat odd world of fat liberation TikTok.
TikTok is a special place and people get onto different kinds of TikTok. I haven't been on fat liberation TikTok, but your algorithm apparently took you there. And so I'm excited to see what you found. I have been somewhat adjacent to this movement. I've seen some things more in print media about it, but I'm up to speed on the fact that there are a lot of people, mostly on the left, who increasingly want our society to not think being fat is a negative thing, to think that it is all body sizes are great, everything's fine, that there's no health differences between being fat and thin. There's a big push for all of this, right? And I want to preface all of this in going into these discussions. Brad and I are really careful to not body shame people. I do believe in affirming people. I don't ever believe in bullying or condone that. And I think the reality is that there are many kinds of bodies and different body types, and that there are all kinds of types of beauty. And I think there's a difference between, not being real thin, but being obese. And I think that's the line where we have to kind of draw on some of this and talk about this in a way. It's I don't think you should have to be a size 2. By no means, I'm not. But I also think it's very harmful when we're telling people that all lifestyles are the same and that that there's no difference in your outcomes as far as your health or your mental health or any of these things. So I think we should dive into this a bit more.
Yeah, I agree completely. I am not somebody, I simultaneously don't believe in body shaming or the body positivity movement in as far as it's become this woke thing where they say fat is beautiful, fat is healthy. I don't want to put anyone down. I don't think we should insult anyone. I don't think anyone should be bullied. But I also don't think we should be lifting up unhealthiness or, scientifically, objectively things that are bad for your health. Obesity is one of the leading causes of death in the United States, heart disease and things of that sort. But unfortunately, on kind of the woke far extremes of the internet, that is exactly what they're doing. Take a listen to this first TikTok.
This is what makes exercise fatphobic. If your motivation to go to the gym is solely cosmetic or to shrink your body to reduce the amount of body fat, I've got bad news for you, supported by substantial scientific research. Body size does not determine health. So if you're not going to the gym for health, and you're not using any actual real measures for physical fitness beyond the scale, then it's not for health. It is because you are actively avoiding fatness, which is, yes, fatphobic.
Okay, so this is just ridiculous for a number of reasons. But one, she's just gaslighting us. They say this a lot, that being fat doesn't, or body fat doesn't correspond to health. This is just gaslighting. Literally any medical expert, any doctor will tell you that is not true. Now things like BMI are very misleading and are not really very scientific. So just because you have a higher body mass index doesn't mean you are going to necessarily have more heart disease, but that's because muscle counts as BMI, right? So you can be obese on BMI, but be ripped, right? Of course,
right.
I would know. No, I kid, but it is just untrue to say that fat doesn't affect, and also there's nothing wrong with wanting to look and feel good. All right, it's not bigoted or ignorant for me to want to go to the gym and look good and feel good about my body. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous.
I really I have to push back on this because I'm not somebody who used to work out a lot, and I'm somebody who used to be heavier than I am now. And I will say that getting into a consistent exercise routine was life-changing for me in multiple ways. One, I lost weight, and you know what? I felt better when I lost weight. Clothes looked better on me. I had more energy. I had, just a better outlook. It helped me mentally. And honestly, I found kinds of exercises that I actually enjoyed that built community. To condemn this and try to put it down and say there's something wrong with people who want to work out, I'm just flabbergasted by it. It's so odd. And it's I don't know, it feels kind of sinister because you're trying to mislead people and tell them something that actually could be really positive for them is some way harmful or wrong, or they shouldn't want to do it.
You're also policing their thoughts because she's fine with you working out, just not for certain reasons. And it's well, ma'am, why don't you mind your own business? People can have whatever motivations they want. But apparently not, because apparently, Hannah, dating preferences are fatphobic.
Oh boy.
Take a listen.
Let's talk about body preferences. I've heard a lot of talk oh, I don't hate fat people, but I'm not attracted to them, and I don't want to date them. It's just my preference. Maybe, in an ideal circumstance, in a world that was forever body neutral and did not demonize fat people, that could be a preference, maybe. But is there really such a thing as preference in a society that exclusively demonizes an option? Fat people are branded as disgusting, branded as something to be eliminated, unhygienic, lazy, XYZ everything else. And we've received that messaging since we were born. Our culture is deeply rooted and entrenched in fatphobia. Chances are it's not just a preference, and you've just been taught to think fat people are gross.
So, I don't think fat people should be judged as any of those things that she mentioned,
No.
like they're inherently lazy or gross, but there's nothing wrong with being attracted to fitness or health, because that's ultimately like our biology. We're attracted to, like, that's why people find fitness attractive, right? I think that's literally evolutionary. The other thing too is I really hate the woke policing of sexual attraction preferences. It's like, because is it sexist or misogynistic that I'm not attracted to women? Because that's literally the logic that you're using. If you're not attracted to something, therefore you're bigoted against it, or you've internalized messages against it or something. It could also just be how that person's wired and what their preferences are. And I don't know why we need to woke police that.
Yeah, to be honest, this kind of argument sounds so rapey to me. Like, you feel entitled to people being attracted to you. Like, I honestly think it's gross. It's very, very weird. And it's not the only area you hear this. You hear it in multiple other areas on the left. Like, you have to be attracted to everybody and anybody, or you're just a bigot. It's like, what the actual... You guys are gross. Like, people are attracted to who they're attracted to. And, you know, maybe society does have certain standards and say some things are more attractive to most people. And that's okay. That's not something that is being programmed into you. That's more of a thing where, like, most people tend to find people who are fit attractive. Again, it's biological. It's just kind of programmed into you. And that doesn't mean that you can't be attracted to people who fall outside of those beauty standards. It's just kind of a prevailing, like, opinion. So I don't know. This whole thing, to me, it feels like they're trying to justify, like, their own insecurity, basically, and say, like, no, like, there's nothing wrong with me. Everybody else is wrong. You should have to accept me. And, like, I just think that's a lazy mentality, whether it be about your looks or anything else. Like, people don't have to accept you. If you want to be, you know, have more friends, if you want to be more attractive to your potential dating partners, there are things you can do to improve yourself, both academically or looks wise or professionally, etc., or just even in your character, to do that. And people should be trying to improve themselves and get better. I don't understand this whole push of just, like, stay where you're at, don't improve, don't ever get better. Yeah,
also, especially, like, with the exception, and I'll be clear, there are some people who have medical conditions, but the vast majority of the time, your weight and how in shape you are, especially if you're on the extreme end of the overweight spectrum, that's within your control. So it's one thing to say that you don't like when people have preferences or are judging people based on inanimate characteristics. Like, I think the issue of racial dating preferences is more fraught. I can see why people have concerns about that, though I also think it's not something people can control. But at least in that case, your weight, you can lose weight, honey. Like, you can put down the fork. You can go to the gym. So you're not being victimized by other people evaluating you on something that is within your control any more than you're victimized when they evaluate how well dressed you are or how successful you are in your career. And, like, that's just meritocracy in the dating pool. And you know what? There's also plenty of overweight people out there who are great people and who would make a wonderful partner for you. So if you're having trouble meeting people, maybe you're applying these same standards that you're complaining about. So anyway, though, this next one actually bothers me the most of any of them. Apparently, Hannah, fatness is a marginalized identity now.
Oh, boy.
And I'm thinking about the moment I realized that fatness was a marginalized identity. I grew up as a fat person, and I also grew up as an intersectional feminist, but I never included fatness in my analysis because I didn't think it was a marginalized identity. I truly didn't think that fatness played a role in the systemic inequalities I faced. But it wasn't until I occupied a larger body that I realized that anti-fatness and anti-blackness shape the way I navigate through spaces. Like the fact that it took me 6 years to find out that I have PCOS. Or the fact that I'm applying for jobs right now and I'm being passed over for jobs I'm overqualified for. And when I go out to dinner with my thin friends, I have to think about if the seating is going to be accessible to me. These are things most people don't have to think about, but it is a lived reality for fat people. Fatness is a marginalized identity because it reshapes the way you navigate through spaces in a world that seeks to eradicate you. And when I understood that, I was able to make sense of a lot of things in my life.
So what I heard her say was that she had an undiagnosed illness. I don't know I'm not familiar with that term that she used, but it sounds like she is having some health issues. Secondarily, her whole marginalization comes down to, is the chair at the restaurant big enough for her? Like, there are real people who are victims of marginalization and bad practices in our society and in government. Like, to try to come in and be like, oh yeah, me too, also a victim because I overate. Like, what? No, like,
that's offensive.
It's offensive.
I'm offended on behalf of, like, so obviously I'm not black and you're not black and she is, but it's bizarre to me that she's conflating something like, I'm gay, right? And you're a woman, and these are things we can't change, and they're not choices. And that's why that was a central part of like the argument for equal rights and equality, is don't treat people unfairly on the basis of things they can't control. Now, I'm not saying we should have discrimination against overweight people, no, but it's like, don't compare it to the same victim class or marginalization as the history of slavery or the oppression of women, or let alone, gay people and the oppression and the HIV crisis. And you're saying the fact that you are overweight and they're choosing to be and not doing anything about it makes you on equal playing field, or it affects your life in the same way. I find that genuinely offensive.
I totally agree. I also think it's offensive that she and now one other person has said something similar, that society's trying to eradicate them. Like, no, nobody is oppressing you. Nobody's coming after you for being fat. In fact, society's trying to sell you more fast food. They're trying to sell you like things that actually are not good for you. Nobody's after you like this, except for yourself and your own inability to like take account for yourself and like confront some of these things. And that's why I do find it
like, what does
like,
eradicate you mean? When we talk about Nazis wanting to eradicate racial minorities, they mean kill them. And you're saying make you skinnier and healthier? First off, people aren't trying to do that to you, really. But even if they were, that is not eradication.
Yeah, that's just the hyperbole, and using that statement is offensive to people who actually have been oppressed and targeted for things they could not help or change about themselves. So I find that video highly offensive.
So the last one is genuinely bizarre. Then this will be the last one we can do because I can't handle that much more of this. But this, apparently, Hannah, Hygiene is now fatphobic.
What is your favorite thing that thin people do that's like quirky, cute?
Being unwashed, or just smelling bad in general. I was so furious when all those celebrities were like, I only bathe my children once a week, because it just reeks of thin privilege. If you are ever in a public space and there is a distinct smell happening, 9 times out of 10, everyone will assume that that smell belongs to whoever the fattest person in the room is. There was a time where I was straight up in an elevator where I watched a thin woman like twist her whole body and rip ass and start giggling, and everyone in the elevator looked at me. It is just assumed that fat people smell, and that's not true. And then when thin people are caught as, like, the source of the smell, it's always like, oh, I'm getting in touch with my body, I'm trying to be a little bit more all-natural, or people laugh it off, and they're like, oh, I guess you forgot to wear deodorant today. But if, like, a fat person forgets to wear deodorant one day, it's a reflection of our entire existence.
I'm, like, never have I ever, like... it's like they're giving themselves like these complexes where like everybody thinks I stink. Like, never have I ever looked around and been like, I bet that fat person stinks. Like, what? That's not what's happening. Like, nobody's doing that. Like, I've never in my life heard commentary like that at all.
Maybe you're just need to wear deodorant more often. Like, maybe they're looking at you when something smells because you look a little slimy, or like maybe you're doing something wrong, because it's not about your weight. I don't ever make that assumption.
No.
And I'll just be clear. I'm an equal opportunity judgmental about people who smell gross. I don't care if you're fat or thin. That's nasty. It's not natural, and that's not cute. I agree that that's a creepy thing that people try to do. But it's not about being fat or thin. And it's just so bizarre. It's like, she's like, I want the right to not wear deodorant. How about we all wear deodorant, ma'am?
Everybody showers and wears deodorant. Also, when she said that like not showering very often is thin privilege, like, what? Like,
what? No, it's nasty people privilege.
That's gross. Like, I'm pretty thin and I shower
would
regularly.
Be quite judged for that in most walks of society.
Yeah, this whole movement, don't listen to them. They're not here for you. They're not going to improve your life. These are not people that have your best interests at heart. And this is just interesting content, but not who I go to for advice.
All right. Yeah, that's about all I can take. If you like this video and you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, bell notifications, yada, yada. Comment. Let us know if you're fat phobic or if you believe in fat liberation. If you're listening to us on podcast, be sure to rate and review. And we'll talk to you all next time on the next show. Or